You may already know having a strong portfolio is key to standing out in the learning and development field, and the content on that portfolio should show your ability to solve real-world problems. But how should you organize that content? In today's video, we're going to look at 3 e-learning portfolios that show off the top 5 UX UI design principles that you should be implementing in your portfolio. But more importantly, by the end of this video, you're going to have tools to take away and implement into your portfolio to make sure you stand out in the crowd. Hello, I'm Sabrina, and I'm an instructional designer and a bootcamp pro on Devlin's team. I've been working in the bootcamp for 9 months now, and helping with the portfolios is one of the most exciting deliverables to help with because it's one of the last ones that the bootcamper works on before they start their job search. And when I'm looking at those portfolios, I already know the content in the portfolio is really good because I've seen all of the work the bootcamper has put into their flagship project. So I really like to focus on the user experience and the user interface. And one of the big things I look for is the ease of use. Is that portfolio easy to navigate? In the 2024 ID Hiring Manager report, we asked hiring managers to rank the top 5 things that they look for when evaluating e-learning portfolios. The number 1 thing was the ability to solve real-world problems, but the number 2 thing, and just as high up there, was the ease of use. How easy is that portfolio to navigate? Are you using good UX UI design principles? In today's video, we're going to focus on the top 5 UX UI design principles that you should be implementing in your portfolio to increase the ease of use. You've probably heard the terms UX UI thrown around, but what do they really mean? Well, UX stands for user experience, and it's referring to the overall user experience and satisfaction a user has when they are using your portfolio or your learning experiences. So that's the ease of use, and do things make sense? Do they know where to look for the buttons and how to navigate? Things like that. It's their experience. UI stands for user interface, and that's talking more about the visual components and elements like buttons, images near text, things like that. So it's all of the design pieces that help increase the usability in that user experience. The best analogy that I've seen to compare UX UI is this ketchup bottle situation. So we have the glass bottle, very classic, sleek design, but the user experience is awful, right? You can hit the bottle really hard and nothing comes out, or you can hit the bottle really hard and everything comes out. Neither of those situations is ideal. On the other hand, we have the squeeze bottle, where it still has that classic branding, where you know exactly what it is when you look at it, but the user experience is so much better. If you squeeze it just very lightly, a little bit of ketchup comes out. If you give it a big squeeze, a ton of ketchup comes out, but you know what to expect by that squeezability. It's much more predictable. It's easier to use. Where the glass bottle, not so much. I said we were going to talk today about the top 5 UX UI design principles you should be implementing into your portfolio. Those design principles are consistency, spacing and proximity, alignment, contrast, and hierarchy. If you want to dig in deeper to these design principles, be sure to check out Devlin's video on the top 5 e-learning visual design mistakes, because we're going to focus on all of those good examples, but check that one out to know what mistakes to avoid. Let's take a look at 3 e-learning portfolios that exemplify these 5 principles. I'm going to highlight some of these principles in each of the different portfolios, and then we'll talk about how you can take those tools and implement them into your own portfolio. The first one we have comes to us from Melanie Atkinson, and she built her portfolio on Squarespace. So what you're going to notice about Melanie's portfolio first is the consistency. Her color palette is consistent throughout: white, black, pink. You can expect that on every page, and you can expect the consistency here. Her buttons are always going to be the same on every page, where when she needs to use a button, the text is the same. Melanie is only using 1 font, which is a good idea. You never want to use more than 2 fonts, then it gets a little too busy. And again, there's that well, why is this font different? What does it mean? We don't want to confuse our users. So when we keep things consistent, it makes a better user experience and usability. So I'll give you a quick scroll through here, and you can just see this color palette of the black, white, and pink. If we go to another page, you're going to see that same color palette of black, white, and pink. One thing I do want to point out really quickly here with the colors is if we take the hex code, so if you look down here, that black is not a pure black. She is using pure white, but not using a pure black, which is great because you never want to combine pure black and pure white. It's really harsh on the eyes. So when you can avoid that, wonderful. But like I said, Melanie's consistent throughout with her color palette. And you want to stay consistent because it's going to help the viewer know what to expect from page to page. Like I was saying, all of Melanie's buttons were bright pink. So when you see a bright pink square, you know that's a button that you can click. You want to be consistent in your colors, your fonts, and your layouts. So colors typically, and just like what the learning experience is, you want to have like a dark neutral, a light neutral, and then a pop of color. Maybe another one if you need another accent of some sort. But you want to try to keep it simple. Keeping things simple is going to keep the usability way up. You also want to stay consistent in those fonts. So like I said, Melanie is only using one font. You never want to use more than two because it can get confusing of just like, why is this font different than this one? Does it mean something different? Should I be able to click it? It can get really confusing. And the same with layouts. So wanting people to know what to expect from page to page helps when you keep a consistent layout. And you can change things up, of course, having like your image on the left or the image on the right. That's totally fine. But making sure that it's not like all over the place. That's what you want to avoid. One way to keep consistent is to create a style guide for your website to ensure the consistency. So we've talked about style guides in the Figma video for e-learning experiences, but creating a style guide for your website can be just as important because you're going to know that you've decided you're going to use this certain hex code of the pink like Melanie did, and you know that you're going to use that pink throughout. Because you don't want to vary or have things different because again, that's going to create some confusion. Okay. The other thing that I want to point out in Melanie's portfolio is she does a great job with spacing and proximity, which is our next design principle we want to talk about. So if we look at the spacing, nothing is crowded. A lot of times when people do their first round of portfolios, things are really squished. They want to try to get as much as they can all together. You want to add a lot of spacing and use white space with intention. So use that white space to guide people to different elements. So for example, here, we have some white space and it's almost, the way the font is almost working too, the white space here is almost pointing to this image of her, like the mock-up of her flagship project. So the white space here is very intentional. It really like here is separating the section from the hero section to her featured project section. We have good spacing here so that we can really highlight the title, what type of project it is, our little synopsis, and we have good spacing here before the button. So she does a really good job with using white space intentionally. Again, here we're separating sections and it's drawing you into these testimonials. Here we have some full designs, but there is still enough white space so that you have like a nice border here to really draw your attention to the text. The other part is proximity. And I want to show you her portfolio page for the proximity. Here, it's really easy to have images and text, but if they're just kind of all over the place, it's hard to know what goes with what. And we don't want that to be the case. So here you can see that the image of the mock-up is close to the text, not too close to where it's overcrowded, but close enough we know which goes with which. The same thing here, not even just with images, but this section that she has here where it's breaking this up, this is obviously closer to the Above and Beyond Yoga title than it is to the other project, so you know where this piece goes. And that's really important to helping people understand where things go. So with spacing and proximity, you want to make sure that that white space, you are using it intentionally to guide the viewer. And the proximity between the elements is crucial because things that go together should go together. They should be near each other. And those are the really big things that you want to focus on. So again, that was Melanie's portfolio, and she used Squarespace to build that. The next portfolio that I want to show you and really focus on the alignment design is Maria Fahim. So Maria's portfolio, she built on Webflow. And if you've never used Webflow, there's a bit of a learning curve there, but it's a great platform to use because you can really customize things. And Maria did a fantastic job. There were some times where elements didn't work the way she wanted them to, and she did a really, really great job of making everything work and making sure all of her design works really well, which is why I really want to highlight the alignment. Because in Webflow, it really is just like you are in there building your website. And so making sure things stay nice and aligned and in a way that makes sense can be difficult, but Maria did a great job with that. So let's take a look. In her heading here, so we're on her About page, in the heading here with her value statement, she did center align things. Typically, when something is more than 3 words in a line, you don't want to center align it. You usually want to left align. But the way she did it here is intentional. So we have the center alignment, but you can see how the line goes out and then comes back in. and almost like leads us right to the button. So she's using that alignment again intentionally to lead us to the button, to lead the viewer where she wants them to go. And like I was saying, if it's usually more than 3 words, you don't want to center align it, but this was intentional and it guides us to the button. If we look here, when she has longer text, this was only 3 questions. Her heading was only 3 questions, so she could have centered them. But for consistency, because everything else with longer text has been left aligned, she left aligned it here. And we can see like this very nice line that it gives us, which helps, again, guide our viewer. So here, the center alignment guides us down to the button. Here, the left align guides us to continue reading this longer text and makes it easier because we're not having a bunch of eye jumps. So with alignment, anything longer than 3 lines or 3 words in a line should be left aligned. And the reason we do that is because we want to avoid any eye jumps. So by eye jumps, I mean like if we go here. So from the like high to eye is an eye jump because we're jumping over. But when it's like a couple lines, that's not too big of a deal. Here you can imagine if it was really centered and we're like going back and forth left to right, that could be really difficult to keep track of. It doesn't make the readability very easy. Okay, the next portfolio that I want to show you comes to us from Annaliza, and she also used Squarespace. And for Annaliza's, I want to talk about the contrast and hierarchy. These two are kind of hard to talk about separately, so I'm going to highlight them together in her portfolio, and then we'll talk about the separate takeaways that you can use in your portfolio for these. So here we have Annaliza's portfolio, and what you'll notice is, again, like a nice consistent color palette throughout. But with Annaliza's, she was first originally using this lighter salmon color for her buttons, but we realized that the white did not show up on this lighter pink or salmon the way you would expect it to. It was kind of hard to read, so we did go through a contrast checker. She checked it out and found a darker salmon color that worked. She still liked this lighter salmon, so used it for just a pop of color. But because they are still like in the same like color family, it doesn't feel too different or inconsistent. So finding that contrast for readability is important. If someone can't read what's on our website, that definitely doesn't make it easy to use. So that is really great there. The other thing that is like a subtle bit of contrast is the colors that she's using in general. So this darker blue and this like salmon color are pretty close to being complementary colors, so opposite on the color wheel. So that in itself gives it enough contrast, different to like differentiate between the two. Now with the hierarchy, we see between the headings, subheadings, and body text. So here, even just like we have a heading, subheading, and body text, it's very clear that this is a heading, this is a subheading, and this is body text. There is contrast within these fonts, and that's what's giving us this hierarchy. And really, I want to show you in her portfolio write-up, she does a good job here with the hierarchy as well. So we have a heading and a subheading. But if we get down here to these bigger titles, we can see what is like, I guess if these are H1s, these are like H2s. So we can see heading 2 sizes. Oh, heading 2 sizes. But here is where we can really see things break down and see that hierarchy. So this is still like a heading 2, but then she's also using heading 3s to show that these sections are a part of this bigger process write-up that she's doing here. And the contrast between the sizes and the weight of the font helps us to find that hierarchy. So when we're looking at contrast, we want to make sure we run those colors through a contrast checker like WebAIM for accessibility. So this is the one that I use and recommend often. We'll make sure to link it down below too so that you have access to it. But yeah, you just throw in the hex code, then it's going to tell you if it matches the contrast ratio. And yeah, all of the things that pass tells you more about what it means for it to pass. And it's really good to compare the size of your headings, subheadings, and body text. Like I was showing here with Annaliza, like we can see that this is a heading 2, and this is smaller, so it must go underneath this. And doing that, having enough contrast is really what helps us with the hierarchy. We can see like where headings are, subheadings, and things like that. Again, creating a style guide for your website is not only going to help with consistency, but then you can go ahead and compare the fonts and the weights of your headings and the body text to make sure there is enough contrast so that the hierarchy is clear. Again, hierarchy is going to help us with the usability because we're going to be able to navigate the page much easier. If I know this is the heading and it's like telling me what this section is going to be, And then I can dig in and read the body text and things like that. So those are all very important pieces that we want to make sure we are checking. When your portfolio is easy to navigate, you don't have to worry about having a frustrating user experience, which means people are going to stay on your portfolio website longer, which is great because then they're going to see all of the fantastic work that you've done. Remember, the goal is to keep hiring managers, recruiters, potential clients on that portfolio as long as possible. So again, they can explore all of the work that you're capable of and what makes you the best candidate for them. So make it easy for them to use. Implement these top 5 UX UI design principles: consistency, spacing, and proximity, alignment, hierarchy, and contrast. When you combine them, it's going to make your portfolio a lot easier to use and easy to navigate. Creating a portfolio can be intimidating, but gathering feedback is going to help you build confidence and make sure that you're creating a portfolio that's easy to use. So join us this Thursday, February 27th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, because we're going to have a live portfolio review with the members of the Devlin Peck team, looking at a few portfolios of the event goers and giving feedback, answering any of your questions that you have about portfolio building. You can sign up for the event using the link below, and I hope to see you there. Bye.